I'm excited for this next segment we've got on our panel because it's beginning to put the rubber on the road in our community. We tried to think of something that would be really new and exciting to bring to you this morning, so we decided to do a panel on green purchasing and local purchasing. So I'm glad to have asked these folks, and they accepted the first time when I asked them, so it was awesome. My name's Corky Overmayor. I'm the manager of the sustainability initiatives for the city of Grand Rapids, and everybody asks me what I do, and I tell them I don't know. I just go to lots of meetings and throw out ideas and have fun. And that's really what this is all about. It's very exciting to be in West Michigan right now, and it's very exciting to have a group of people coming together to think about our future. I've begun adopting the strategy of not looking back but looking forward. Sometimes we spend a lot of time teaching history, and while that has its place and it's important, I think a lot of times we try to drag things along with us. So another fun thing I get to do is spend time with students from time to time. I'm going to be in a class at GRCC tonight, and I'm excited about that. But I get to challenge students to get involved and to get creative. And our last panel talked a little bit about education, and I challenge all of us today, as long as I've got the mic, try and find ways to get students involved in your businesses and so on. Somebody made the comment up here that they really don't have the business experience. Yeah, but they've got a heck of a lot of creativity that we don't have. So if we can marry that in our community to bring students into situations and committees and teams and things, to me, that's just an awesome opportunity that we have, and I'm really excited about that. And that's high school on up. I've been able to work with the Mayor's Youth Council a little bit, and those kids are just awesome. They do a lot of research and some cool things. So enough of my soapbox. I'd like to introduce the panel to you, and made a few notes here. First of all, Bill Stow is going to be starting us off this morning. Bill's not only a close friend, but he's my soundboard. A lot of times when I have a harebrained scheme, I call up Bill and I say, what do you think about this? And sometimes that heads off in a direction that neither one of us want to go, but we have a good time anyway. Bill's a former business associate. I'm actually an employee for a company called Earth Tech. I'm a contract employee. They call me the rent-a-boss at the city. But I get to play in government and not really have to be a part of it, which is kind of fun because I can say things sometimes that I don't really have to worry about. Bill's the president and CEO of Sustainable Research Group. He's currently heading up some projects that we've been working on here, working on food waste composting and some other things. He's working on the green purchasing eco-EMS project that we've got going as part of the sustainability partners. I'd like to believe that we might be responsible for bringing biodiesel fuel to West Michigan. We had a project a couple years ago, another harebrained scheme, where I said, hey, Bill, what do you think about taking waste fryer oil and turning it into fuel? And we sat down and pulled together a project. We got a grant from the state to do that, and we spun off a couple things out of that, which was kind of fun. Grand Valley began using biodiesel fuel in their research vessels on the lake, which was a great thing. And Crystal Flash opened a pump here in town using biodiesel fuel. Zealand Farm Services began picking up on the concept. So we had a good time with that project. We got lucky, I guess, to bring a concept that was on the cutting edge, and we had fun with it. Our next panelist is Mary Ellen Mica, who is the sourcing manager for Steelcase. She's also a former business associate, having worked with Earth Tech. She's helping craft some exciting work on the eco-EMS green purchasing project as well. She's on that team. John Ebers is the Sustainable Business Officer for the Metro Health Organization here in town. I see John at a lot of the many activities that I'm at, and I always appreciate his input and his wisdom in some of the things that we talk about. Again, he's obviously a younger guy, and he brings that creativity piece that we miss a lot of times in our business planning. Our fourth panelist will be Alyssa Singh, who's the Executive Director of Local First. Local purchasing is something that I believe from a community sustainability standpoint is critical. for a couple reasons. Number one, it's good for the economy, but it also is great for our environment because we don't have to transport a lot of stuff. We cut down on greenhouse gases and fuels and all that good stuff. So I'm excited to have Alyssa here. Finally, I'm going to pull a fast one on you. Abby Corso is here with the Delta Institute. We're meeting at 2 o'clock this afternoon with our green purchasing panel, and Abby's been acting as our consultant from the Delta Institute, helping guide us in that endeavor here in town. But she's been working with the City of Chicago and some other communities around to develop green purchasing practices, so I thought maybe she'd have some perspectives that maybe the other panelists wouldn't have since she's from out of town. So I'm going to open up the floor with this panel discussion now, and we've got until about 11:40. So, Bill, you want to be first?
Thanks, Corky. Appreciate that introduction. And I guess the role I'm going to play today is kind of give an overview of the green purchasing initiatives that are going on here in West Michigan. And as Corky said, by comparing me to John, I'm old enough to remember back when recycling first got started, which is a number of years ago. And I always remember the debates by some of the established recyclers back then, where I was a young kid at that point trying to push recycling. The older business guys were saying, you can't make something happen if there's not a demand for it. So who's going to buy recycled content materials? Well, in the 70s, that was a negative connotation. No one wanted materials that had recycled content in it. It was virgin materials because you had the specifications that you wanted. So it's always been interesting to me that what is the demand side of green products. And that's what I'd like to talk today about. Tom Reardon in his presentations on BIFMA is talking about how some of the leading furniture companies in the region are trying to differentiate their products from all of the competitors worldwide by making sure that they meet certain minimum requirements for sustainability. And the other way to do that is for customers, consumers like us, to specify materials that meet sustainability criteria. And oftentimes it's very hard to figure out what sustainability criteria means. But working with the Delta Institute, SRG and the Delta Institute were working on this, an eco-environmental management system. And it was focused on the lower Grand River. This is the background I wanted to give you. And that's about 3,000 square miles of land between Ionia and the lakeshore that encompasses all of the tributaries that lead into the Grand River. It's a huge area, and water quality laws have been in effect since the late 60s, early 70s, and since that time a lot of data has been collected on watersheds. So this Eco-EMS project, very innovative approach, went out and collected all the publicly available data on contaminants in the watershed. And we ended up with a list that encompassed a number of constituents that were harmful to human health or the environment. That list then was presented at a meeting here in Grand Rapids to a group of folks and said, what do we do with this information? And a large part of the folks said we should use that for a purchasing program. So I think we've got a very unique strategy here to help us as a region figure out what kind of products we could purchase that would clean the watershed up. Just think, if you could clean up the Grand River one purchase at a time, wouldn't that be kind of cool? Well, the first starting point is figuring out what do you need to take out of the products you're purchasing. What kind of products do you need that would be safe? So we've ended up with a number of initiatives. That kind of kicked off an initiative with the mayor of Grand Rapids. He has an environmental advisory council, and he asked the members of that group to develop a policy for the city of Grand Rapids, an environmental purchasing policy. And that policy focused on that idea. What constituents could we require the city not to purchase so that every purchase would help clean up the Grand River? as materials were used, as it become part of the stormwater runoff, as it become material that was sent to the wastewater treatment plant. It goes down our toilets, it goes down our sinks, it goes down our bathtubs and showers, our parking lots, all of these things, ultimately, one way or another, ends up in the watershed, whether it's a storm drain or infiltration. So as a result of the city looking at this and developing a draft policy, which they're still looking at, and there's some recent activity that they may be movement for them to adopt something similar, another initiative sprung up with a group that met with the Delta Institute and SRG earlier, and that's the idea that, well, let's think broader than a city. Let's think in the region. What if we could develop a green purchasing consortium where anyone that wanted to purchase a product that would be environmentally beneficial to the region would have access to the information that they would need, and we could develop a system to allow group purchases. So there are many models out there. Hospitals use them, cities use them already, of these purchasing collaboratives. But there are very few that have a sustainability focus. And we've done a little bit of research to try to figure out, well, this is a new term. What does sustainable purchasing mean? And although it's still evolving, we think that it involves purchasing materials, products, and labor in a manner that reflects fiscal responsibility, social equity, community and environmental stewardship. It involves the purchase of products and services that have a lesser or reduced effect on human health and the environment when compared with competing products that serve the same purpose. This comparison may consider raw materials, acquisition, production, manufacturing, packaging, distribution, reuse, operation, maintenance, or disposal of the product. So the full life cycle of the product can be considered in a sustainable purchasing initiative. So you'll hear testimonials on the panel today. A lot of the people on the panel are part of this Green Purchasing Consortium. We've been meeting now for about a year, and we're getting closer and closer to being able to come forward to the community saying we're going to develop a database, we're going to screen the products that we put on that database, and we're going to allow anyone that wants to purchase to take their incremental small purchase, add it, aggregate it to until we get a large enough order to get volume discount from a supplier. So that's kind of the goal. The theory is that to the extent that we can, all the products in that database will be better than competing products that are on the marketplace for the water quality in the Grand River watershed. At least that's our goal. Thanks.
Our next panelist is Mary Ellen, who's going to speak a little bit about the Steelcase experiences with green purchasing, and also maybe some experience on the panel or the team that we've been working on.
Okay, thank you, Corky. And what Bill was just saying about the Grand River Watershed Project and the progress toward implementing this West Michigan Green Purchasing Consortium fits perfectly with what Steelcase is starting to work on. So we're just one of many companies and businesses, agencies, schools that happens to be involved in this committee, you know, working on green purchasing criteria. At the same time, back at Steelcase, we have our own initiatives that actually correlate real well. And I don't know if many of you know, but Steelcase recently has been expanding manufacturing in other locations throughout the world, consolidating more in this area. So at this point, we have only about 50% of our manufacturing here in West Michigan. So one side benefit, I guess, for us implementing some of the program that Bill is talking about and our own initiatives at Steelcase is that hopefully we can benefit communities throughout the world. Because when we're doing green purchasing, we're not we're trying to do it from a centralized point of view. So we're trying to make sure that our practices are similar throughout our different locations. So hopefully, any benefit that we would see here in West Michigan, we would also see in these other communities where, many of our companies happen to have manufacturing operations. Some of the things that we're working on, I'd say two of the key initiatives that we're working on at Steelcase that correlate well with this are a materials assessment type of approach to our purchasing. And by that, I mean looking at the constituents of everything that we buy, anything that might end up in our products. So if you're a customer to us, you buy a chair, you walk into your new office, you've got this new Steelcase chair, you don't want to be exposed to off-gassing of something that might be harmful to you, or even that is, a nuisance. Those are the kinds of things we're looking at, but well beyond that. I mean, we're looking at extremely low levels of constituents in any of our products, trying to make sure that everything is very favorable to human health and environmental health. And that kind of an idea is really right in line with the analysis of these different constituents that have been found in the Grand River watershed that we need to make sure we're not introducing in this area. Our big focus when we look at materials assessment is trying to position different products for what we call cradle-to-cradle certification. So I don't know if some of you may be familiar with that. We work with a consulting firm, McDonough Braungart Design Chemistry, to do these cradle-to-cradle certifications of key product lines. And by working with their criteria, it has forced us to eliminate a lot of different constituents, some things that are very common, like polyvinyl chloride, PVC edge banding, for instance, that is all over the place on the edges of desks and what have you. So it has forced us to have to drastically change what we purchase in order to improve the characteristics. So it fits well with what we're working on locally here. Another influence, and I think probably Alyssa will talk more about this later, is we also are concerned with lifecycle analyses of our products and making sure that it's not just that chair that you're exposed to in the office where you work, but what went into that chair, what kind of manufacturing operations, what kind of extraction operations, and the original mining, how far did those parts have to travel in order to get to our manufacturing and assembly operations before they finally get to you. Those are things that we have to consider too, because we can't just look for the lowest price part that may be coming from 5,000 miles away. We have to take into account the environmental effects of transporting things that far as well. So that's a challenge for us, because certainly, if I think of what's going to make my job sustainable in the purchasing function, well, certainly it's the economic side too. I mean, we have to always be looking out for what's the appropriate overall value, total cost, including these environmental and social effects, but certainly not excluding the cost or price itself. Some of the things we're doing specifically at Steelcase, we are hoping to reduce our environmental footprint by 25% by 2012, and that's the year that will be our 100-year anniversary. And there are many ways that we're trying to do that. One of the ways is just looking at our energy purchases. Right now I'm involved with a project where we're evaluating different diesel and gasoline providers and trying to figure out what combination of biodiesel can we use with the diesel fuel. And all these things are a balancing act, trying to make sure that we're not adversely affecting the performance of our trucks on the road, but at the same time, looking at the right combination of fuels to come up with an overall benefit for the environment. And even from a cost perspective, there are some cost advantages as well. So that's a real nice side benefit. We're hoping also to try to help promote clean, renewable technology when it comes to electricity purchases. So whether it's for our operations and our electricity usage in this area in West Michigan, or whether it's for other locations where we have plants, Southern California, Atlanta, Georgia, Athens, Alabama, Toronto, et cetera. We want to make sure that we are somehow helping to promote the growth of industries that offer things like solar energy, wind power, anything that is an improvement over the old coal-fired power plant technology. Anything we can do to try to help reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So that'll be a big push of ours in the coming few years. Some of the other things we do from just a general purchasing perspective, we've tried eliminating VOCs. We're still on this track of eliminating VOCs from all of our finishing operations. A few years ago, we completely eliminated them from our metal coating operations. We use all powder coating, so that has worked well for us. But we're in the process of, we're almost done with eliminating them from our wood finishing operations. That's been a little bit trickier because of all the different layers of coatings and the finish, I guess, that is needed for wood furniture. But it's been great because it's a huge reduction for us in VOC emissions. In fact, I was surprised to see in the paper the other day when they had reported, I think in the Sunday paper here in Grand Rapids, that the annual toxic release inventory numbers had gone up for this area for the first time in the past few years. Ours have gone down significantly, so we've been happy about that. I'm not quite sure what numbers or what sources were influencing that to go up in the area. But that's something obviously we all need to be concerned about as part of this consortium. Some of the other things we've done over time, packaging issues, just trying to use more blanket wrapping, for instance, when we send out our products. And it seems counterintuitive. You know, it seems like you'd have a lot more damage with your products with blanket wrapping rather than using a lot of corrugated material and a lot of different protective type packaging within that. But we have found that it is just the opposite, that apparently the folks who are handling the loading and offloading of the trailers and installing and all that are that much more careful when they can see what they're actually loading and unloading. So by doing more blanket wrapping, by doing a lot less of the heavy-duty corrugated packaging and maybe using more of the polyethylene type wrap, we have actually seen damage go down significantly. So it's been a huge benefit in both ways. So we're happy to find that out because that was our initial concern as we were converting more and more items to blanket wrapping. Other things, we are just trying any opportunity we get on different projects where we are requesting quotes from potential suppliers. We're trying to evaluate the green aspects versus all the other aspects of those products. And anything that this West Michigan Consortium ends up doing, anything we can end up doing to make it easier to kind of consolidate our efforts and do the research to determine what are some of these products and how can we combine our usages to try to get good pricing will help us significantly because I think in the situation of all the different folks we have in our purchasing department, anyone, if they had the same type of performance of products in front of them, but they had one that was much better from an environmental perspective, they would certainly choose that with the other factors being equal. But I think where we slip up is not necessarily taking the time, not having the time to do the research up front to actually identify what those materials are. We're all in a hurry, and if we can somehow combine forces and try to do that, I think we could all benefit significantly. So thank you.
Thanks, Mary Ellen. Just a sidebar, the city will be working in the next few years on a water conservation program. We're partners with the Great Lakes St. Lawrence Cities Initiative, a group of about 40 or 50 mayors from different cities all around the Great Lakes Basin in 8 states and Toronto and other places. So we're going to be focusing on water conservation, so that's going to feed in just really nicely with the kinds of things that our local industries are doing to try to conserve water and energy and so forth. And I really would like to have information back as I can feed back to that group over time. Our next panelist is John Ebers, and John's always fun to talk to because you never know what he's going to do next.
Sorry, I wore my lifts today. So, for the record, I am old enough to have been around where recycling has been around for my entire life. And also young enough to see the trend from recycled content to be something that we don't look for to now, at least in the circles that I run with, people are applauding it and paying extra. So keep up the good work, Steelcase. As Corky mentioned, I'm Metro Health Sustainable Business Officer. To sum up what I do in less than 20 seconds, I spend about half my time working on our new project out off the M6. It's a $150 million replacement facility for our current hospital, and we are currently seeking LEED certification for that. So if that goes into the hat of green purchasing, we offer a little bit of change for the project. The other half is with our operations, and I work on everything from recycling to purchasing. I sit on our product review committee, and as you can imagine, in a healthcare setting, there are a number of factors that we take into account, both economic as well as health and safety when it comes to the performance of a product when your chest is open up for a bypass and things of that nature. So we are currently trying to factor in sort of what is our environmental criteria when we look at a product coming into our facility. We were recently given the designation by the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality as a clean corporate citizen. What that basically means is we have an internal EMS. And we have a number of people in our hospital that are concerned about not only green purchasing, but the philosophy of sustainability and infusing that into how we do our businesses, how we handle our business. And I say that because we're an osteopathic hospital. There's a lot of commitment on both the clinical side as well as the administration side to say, how can we function by first doing no harm, which is a key component within the Hippocratic Oath that all physicians have to read upon their graduation. So last year we were looking at how do we infuse a green purchasing program, and more importantly to me was how do we not make it a program, how do we just make it the way we do business? So that when you come and you want to do business with Metro Health, this is what you have to be. This is what the expectation is. And I went into our purchasing director and I said, hey, we would like to start a green purchasing program. What do you think? And he pulled up his database of 14,000 line items. He said, great, where do you want to start? And I had a few indications of where I would have liked to start. But I will tell you it was a little bit of a sobering moment looking at that monstrosity of line items. So we've honed it down, and one of the things that we came up with and one of the sort of the parameters that were set were obviously for us health and safety is number one. You know, granted different Band-Aids, whether it's made from latex or a polyethylene, you know, there's a little wiggle room right there. But when you're talking about surgical items, there's very specific guidelines that our physicians want to meet. I said, of course, you know, we're not going to question that, but if it meets the health and safety performance and as well as the environmental performance that we're ascribing to, can we go for it? And they said, yeah. Of course, you always have to take the financial into account, dollars and cents. You know, we're not going to go bankrupt just procuring non-PVC items and things like that. It has to make a dollars and cents business argument, if you will, in the context of today's business atmosphere. So the environmental. Director said, all right, now that we've established the social and the financial, what would you guys like to see? And I said, well, you know, we've done a good job historically of getting free of known culprits, is a term taken from Bill McDonough. You know, we were one of the first hospitals to eliminate mercury. We have relatively minimal amounts of latex, and we have really started to push the envelope on the PVC items. However, there's over 100,000 chemicals out there with less than 5% ever withstanding the scientific method. And, you know, if you just take those three chemicals right there, it sounds like we're being a little myopic in our outlook. And so through our work with the consortium, we're trying to get a better idea of the products that we purchase and how that impacts our watershed and downstream. So we've said, okay, here are a couple of the things that we're putting into place, looking at priority pollutants, for example. What else are we looking at? Energy used. Almost all of our office equipment standard is you have to be Energy Star in order for us to entertain your contract. That's relatively easy. The difficult one for us is most medical instrumentation equipment that requires any electrical load. There's not an Energy Star benchmark. There are some that have better energy when you look when you compare them together, but there's not a standard for it. So we're trying to work through it in the context of, hey, if there's two products, say from a Philips and a GE, what's the energy load on those type of materials? Packaging content, I just want to add that we're buying a lot of furniture from Steelcase and they're using blankets, and our finance people will be very happy to find out that they're not being damaged, being wrapped in blankets. So thank you. And on the other side of that is, all our medical equipment comes in wrapped in plastic and things like that. And we always have to be cognizant of, what is the full cost of that product. I'll give you a great example. We have binkies that we were looking at, and you wouldn't believe how much time we spend on binkies and the amount of packaging that goes into them. And one came in this polyethylene wrap, and one came in this vinyl wrap. And we thought, if the binkies are equal, what would we choose? Obviously that wasn't the decision maker, but it was put into the conversation so we could look at how could we potentially divert that waste stream after the binky's been used. 14,000 line items. Again, journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. Chemicals, I already talked about that a little bit more, but I'm going to give you a good example that we went through, going through a Green Seal certified chemical process. But again, in healthcare, chemicals continually are the big elephant in the room nobody wants to talk about because there are so many. And it's hard because we find ourselves where we've got to get a product, but yet we don't want to spend hours and hours trying to say, what is the environmental criteria, what are the sustainability features about that product when we have to make a decision. So it's one of those things that I'll be honest with you, we don't have it down pat, but we're working on it and we're trying to figure out our filtering mechanism to deliver products to our patients and their families. So I'll give you two quick examples of how we've kind of looked at that strategy from the purchasing side and what have been the repercussions by the products that we've procured. If any of you have ever been in a hospital or a physician office, in their office, 9 times out of 10 is a needle box container. And they fill up that needle box container and that whole thing goes into an incinerator. By law, that's what you have to do. The whole thing goes into the incinerator. The law says that the contents have to be incinerated. Well, we would like to really mitigate the amount of medical waste that we generate because that is one of the largest sources of dioxin emissions in the country. And so we found a product. Now, instead of the whole box going into the incinerator, the contents are dumped out, the box inside is sterilized, and then we get the boxes back and reuse them over and over. The company estimated a 7.8-ton reduction in our medical waste. In January was the first full month that the whole hospital was online. We had about a 1,000-pound reduction in medical waste. And that's just a small community hospital. That puts us on track for about a little over 7.5 tons of medical waste reduction. When you compared this product with the current one, it was a cost-neutral situation. But on the back side, if we're reducing that amount of medical waste, we're saving about $2,000 per year. Certainly not an exorbitant amount of money, but it's not something that we would actually like to have back and put towards other things. So that was one of our wins. Next thing was chemicals. We have spent a lot of money in the new hospital to ensure that the indoor air quality through our furniture, through our finish, through our paints, through our adhesives is maintained, through the air handlers and how many air exchanges we have. We would be remiss if suddenly on day 2 we're cleaning the hospital with chemicals that are degrading all those things that we just spent a lot of money on. So this year we put forward a RFP out to a bunch of vendors, and we had a pre-bid meeting and we set the expectation. I mean, as the consumer of multiple products, I mean, we are driving the market in so many ways. And we just simply said, this is the expectation. They have to be Green Seal certified. You need to bid that, and they also need to be below the cost of what we're currently paying. And what do you know? The incumbent won, and they said, we can do it, and we can also save you money. And they saved us approximately $10,000 per year. It's hard for me because, you know, although I've seen these trends and recycled content have become vogue, I continually hear people a little older than me say that green products, doing things environmentally responsible, continues to be a cost barrier. And I've heard it so many times that I wish I had a nickel for it, because my financial the financial tier of my triple bottom line would be way up. But in my experience, and these are just two examples, we have continually seen when we factor in all the costs that go into a product that we're saving money. And we can demonstrate that to our accounting people, our financial people, the executive level folks. And when you can do it there, it's a win. So, you know, obviously you're speaking to the, or I'm converted, but these are the benefits that we've seen, and we're very happy with it. I look forward to your questions in the panel discussion.
Thanks, John. I can't resist this. I think a binky is probably a generational term. If it's what I think it is, Bill and I used to call those pacifiers, I think. So
I've been working with the childbirth nurses all week. So.
It's awesome. I'm just really proud of Metro and all that you've done. It's just exciting to hear some of the things, the innovations that you're doing. So thank you for your contributions to the community. Alyssa, I've only met Alyssa this morning, so I can't tell you much about her except that she's John's age probably, and I don't know what to expect from her.
Thanks, Corky. Not that many people have met me. I'm pretty new still. I've only been with Local First about 3 months, but Local First is a network of locally owned, privately held, and locally owned, privately held businesses here in West Michigan. We right now have about 250 members, and I decided to stray from a PowerPoint because I want you all to take something home with you. If you could pick these up off your table, these are our member directories, and these are the old ones from last year, so they only have about half of our members. But Local First was started in 2002, and since then has doubled in membership each year. So we're growing very quickly. We've actually added 25 members in the past month. We are a business-to-business network, so we encourage local businesses to support other local businesses, and then we do community education about the benefits of supporting local business. If you'll flip to page 5, you'll see this lovely chart. This is a study. Everyone have it? This was a study done in Andersonville. Andersonville is a neighborhood in Illinois, and they studied 10 different businesses and compared locally owned businesses to non-locally owned businesses, and found that if you spend $100 at a locally owned business, 67 of those $100 stay in the community and they recirculate. They're spent at local marketing companies. They're spent at local legal firms. They're spent all over. And then quite often that local lawyer that was paid with that money will go to the local coffee shop, and the money will continue to recirculate. On the other hand, if you spend $100 at a non-locally owned business, only 43 stays in the community. And when you start to multiply that over and over and over, all of those hundreds of dollars, it makes a huge difference in your tax base. It makes a huge difference in your roads and your schools and everything. So part of what we do is we try and teach people in the community about the benefits of supporting business. On the other side, I think it's page 4, right next to that, I mentioned some of the reasons, some of the other benefits of supporting local business. One of those is that more money recirculates in Grand Rapids. Another is that nonprofits receive greater support. Our local businesses tend to be the businesses that contribute either on the small level, the mechanic that gives money for the softball team and has the pictures of years of Little League teams up in his place, or the larger businesses, the Meyers, the Van Andels, the DeVosses that support the other community institutions and make this a nice place to live. A third reason is that unique businesses create character and prosperity. They make a city a place that you want want to travel. Before I did this, I worked for Aquinas, and I traveled quite a bit for them between Chicago and Detroit. And I've traveled all over on my own, but it would never cease to amaze me how many neighborhoods seemed the same everywhere. They had the same things that we have on 28th Street in Detroit, in Chicago, on pretty much every street that I was in. And I don't know about you, but I like some of those places, but I really like the little independent places that make me think, oh, this is Grand Rapids. Or, you know, when I go down south, I like good southern food. I like those restaurants. Not so much of the change, that feel. And so supporting local businesses helps to keep that unique individual feel in all of our communities. In addition, supporting local businesses, local farmers, local retailers, everything, reduces your environmental impact. An apple grown in Michigan is transported much fewer miles, many, many fewer miles than an apple grown in Washington. And much of our food is transported about 1,500 to 2,000 miles. So one way that I've actually started to change a lot of my own practices, but I'd encourage you next time you're in the grocery store to check the little labels on where your produce is from and all sorts of other things. So many of the jobs in this area are created by local businesses. Actually, local businesses are the largest employer in the region. They employ more people than any of the non-locally headquartered or owned businesses. Another difference in local versus non-local businesses is that local businesses tend to have better customer service. You can really develop relationships with the people in the stores and the places that you go. I already mentioned the investing in the community, but that's evidenced as we were talking about the Grand Angels earlier. Much of that money is local money that recirculates here. But anyways, this is a huge tool. I'd encourage you to look through this. We have about 130 of our businesses mentioned in here. We have 250 now. You can find them all on our website, and you can find out more information about us there. And I'm going to go because we have another person. I think we're running close on time, but thank you very much.
Thanks, Alyssa. One of the cool things about the Eco-EMS green purchasing thing that we've got going is we said the last meeting, I recall, what will make this sustainable, and the piece we added was local purchasing. We said there's lots of green purchasing and environmentally preferred product things out there, but buying local seems like a sustainable practice. So I'm excited to work more with you, Alyssa, and I know in the city our purchasing is geared a lot towards minority and women-owned businesses, trying to stimulate that business in our community, and that's a great thing. But I'm also working to add local purchases to that concept as well, because if the city government can't buy products from its own vendors and things in its own community, that doesn't feel right to me to be sustainable. So our last panelist is Abby Corso, and I'm excited to hear what she's got to say. I've heard rumors that Chicago's jealous of Grand Rapids, so maybe she'll talk about that.
Thanks, Corky. I have some quick notes here, kind of a last-minute addition, but I really appreciate the opportunity, and it's been a real pleasure and honor to work with the folks here in Grand Rapids on this project. And it's true, Grand Rapids is ahead of Chicago on sustainable purchasing. I believe that's what we've decided to call the consortium, because it includes so many other elements in addition to environmentally friendly products. Local purchasing, economic development are really important components of it. But I just want to kind of give you a little flavor of what Chicago's doing on this topic, and maybe give you some additional ideas on what we can do here. First of all, I am with the Delta Institute, and we are a nonprofit organization. We're based in Chicago, and we have an office in Lansing, and my colleague Todd Parker, who staffs that office, is right here also. And we work on environmental quality issues in the Great Lakes region and community redevelopment issues, and that's brownfield sites, mainly in Chicago. I primarily work on environmental quality projects such as our sustainable purchasing project and our carbon projects. But what are we doing in Chicago? We've been working with the city for about a year to understand how they purchase products within the city of Chicago. And talk about a 1,000-mile journey. And, you know, for all Chicago's greenness, they don't have an environmentally product purchasing policy. So one of the things we're working with them on is to develop an ordinance for city agencies to purchase larger quantities of greener products. And those are products that are less toxic, that minimize waste, and that increase efficiency. So it's really a broad range of products. So that's one of the things that that we're helping them with. We're also helping them with just greening some of their contracts internally and working on mainly commodity-type products, things that the city purchases in huge amounts, in huge volumes, you know, janitorial products and paper and office supplies. So we've been kind of working through their procurement process to make that happen. But I think what's more exciting is that the city is taking a leadership role kind of internally, but they're also taking a leadership role in the region and helping us put together what we will probably call a Chicago Green Purchasing Network. And this will be for city businesses as well as Chicago region. That's our 6-county region around Chicago. And it will be a resource for those businesses to come to you know, find green products to purchase, to you know, get some technical assistance on, you know, revising their contracts and their purchasing processes to increase their volume of green products. But it's also to build demand and awareness in the region, because there's pockets of this going on, but not on a really large scale. So we're hoping that as this network forms and grows in the region, it'll increase the demand for these type of products. And that will also hopefully increase the demand for local supplies of these products. So how this project is proceeding, we're working on 10 pilots with city, private companies, the city, and the state of Illinois. And some of the projects we're working on is, John mentioned LEED buildings. We're helping one company develop a green purchasing tenant guide for their building, and this is like the 2nd largest building in the country, and they have a lot of tenants. So they want to put together a guide for their tenants on how to increase green purchasing within their building. We're looking at solvent substitutions and manufacturing processes. We're looking at a lot of commodity products, you know, a lot of office products, janitorial supplies, a lot of what you consider low-hanging fruit, but you know, you can get a lot of successes working in those areas, and once you get a success, you know, it can kind of you can do other things with those companies. We're working on food product containers for cafeterias, and it's a really fun project because it's really visible, and you know, because people are, you know, taking lunches home in clamshell containers that are recyclable or corn-based products. So, and we're also looking at lower VOC outdoor paints for one of Chicago's kind of skyline buildings. So a real range of projects that are going on there. But you know, as we work with Chicago, we're also bringing a lot of information and ideas from this region into that project, because certainly I think this region is way ahead on what we're doing on sustainable products. So again, it's a different approach, but you know, the real commonality here is kind of increasing demand, making it easy, and really increasing the purchasing of these sustainable products. Thanks.
Thanks, Abby. All right. You've heard from our panelists. We have about 20 minutes left for questions and answers. And if you'd like to throw some questions out, we'll get started. Who's going to be first? Buzz, and then Jim in the back.
Of all the purchases that you're making green, is there anything that's blatantly missing as a local product that could be potentially used as a? I'm looking at Steelcase and Metro. You know, you're outsourcing your products. Is there something that's blatantly missing category from from West Michigan that we could supply to you?
I have one thought. I know something that would help us would be just kind of the process that John described. He already went through a request for proposal process where he apparently asked for janitorial type supplies to be Green Seal certified. For ease of implementation, I know what would help us, and something that we would use would be very accessible information. Could be like an electronic catalog containing janitorial supplies, other generally used items that are either Green Seal certified or have some other higher level environmental friendliness to them. Because again, I really think it comes down to, unfortunately, the fact that people don't have the time or don't take the time to investigate that, and if it were right in front of them, they would choose it. So I know it would help us.
Buzz, I would say that if you're looking for a new business, if you could make something out of sawdust or powder coat waste, you'd be right on target.
Yeah, we can give you that too.
You're right, well.
One of the things that it's a big pet peeve of a lot of folks internally is that we have a lot of single-use items, and in our current economic system, those prove to be the less costly option. And the FDA actually will allow some of those single-use items to be reprocessed, and there are companies out there that do that. There are none located in the state of Michigan right now. And you think about, in those lines of 14,000 items, there's a lot of reprocessing to be done. So if there's any venture capital available, I would strongly encourage you to pursue that.
We need a diaper recycling facility, Buzz. In the back.
Yeah, I was just going to ask Bill Staub about the Grand River project, and I'm interested because I like to fish the Grand River, so anything you can do to improve the water quality is of interest to me selfishly. But I know Lake Macatawa watershed, phosphate was one of the primary actionable contaminants. Did you find the same for Grand River watershed as phosphate, a contaminant of concern?
Actually, Abby here is the one that tabulated all that information, but I mean, I think phosphate was an issue. Heavy metals and pesticides were kind of the big categories.
Yes, I agree with that.
And then on phosphate, I mean, a lot of us paint the metal, and it's a good thing we paint with powder now instead of VOC paints. But you have to pre-treat the metal, and for decades, the pre-treatment of choice was a phosphate material, but there are phosphate-free alternatives, and we're using them at Hayward at a couple of plants, but not everywhere, and first cost is a factor. So in terms of the consortium and buying power, I don't know that we, competing office furniture companies could ever buy the same pre-treatment chemical from the same supplier in bulk and get better pricing, but it's a possibility, I guess, for green purposing consortium, phosphate-free pre-treatment.
Can I make a comment about that? And it's really to help our competitor. We have had great success with one of our suppliers recently, and I won't name names, but with chemical pretreatment. Not only have we reduced the amount of chemical usage, but they have saved us huge amounts of money in terms of water usage, energy usage, by keeping the temperature down, using far less water. I mean, really staggering, a staggering difference from what we used to do in our pretreatment system. So overall, it's a huge benefit to us from a cost perspective, and to us and to the community from an environmental perspective. So don't settle for just the, a slight cost improvement on the chemistry. I mean, try to get all of that. It's possible. Not yet, but they're working on that too. Yeah, it was enough. There were enough changes made that there were concerns about, would there be a negative effect on quality of the finishing of the product, and that's been fine, but they didn't want to change too many things at once, so that's next. Yeah. So I can tell you more about it too.
Actually, just as a side note, I too had an engineer not want to go to the phosphate-free because he saw that it had, the first one we tried had hafnium in it. I'm not sure why. And he said, hafnium, there's radioactive byproducts that are part and parcel of using a hafnium. So I'm not going to use a radioactive material. So you find resistance to change, I guess is the point.
Yes.
This is more a question for Mary Ellen and John. Your organizations are so large that you have one staff to invest in doing the research in terms of the manufacturing processes and making those more green, and also in terms of the purchasing network at Metro Health. Is there a plan or an intent later on to share the research that you do? Because just in terms of the fuels and trucks, I'm sure that Alticor and a lot of the manufacturing suppliers to the automotive industry could say, the same vehicles that we use, can we take the research that's been done already by a company such as Steelcase, or to identify the cleaning products that would be on day 2 of a new facility to be more environmentally friendly, so that the smaller organizations could kind of reap the value of the extra work that you're being able to put into that, because they don't have the resources of staff and other things that allow them to do the same sort of research that you do already.
Welcome to the Eco-EMS Green Purchasing Coalition. That's exactly what we're trying to do, is garner all that research and stuff from all of our members and be able to provide it to people, so as best we can.
Yeah, I would say just give us a call. I mean, I could give you my card, and it's not that, I mean, just because we have a lot of people in our purchasing department and all that doesn't mean that we're spending, all the time and effort that we would like on research, but there are pockets where a fair amount of work has been done, and I don't think, except if there's a rare trade secret type situation, we would be happy to share it, because we would want everyone to be able to do something to, benefit the community. So I'll give you my card, and, it depends on what you're talking about purchasing, but yeah, there may be situations where we could help already, but certainly through the consortium.
Our experience is 95% of the work, or 5% of the work, is the research. There's templates out there available on the web. It's just your company determining this is going to be a priority for you. That's really where the work comes in, and being able to negotiate on that front. Because if you're not, I mean, you can have the template, but if you're not willing to do that throughout every product, then you might as well not have the template.
One of the fun things I get to do is attend the West Michigan Sustainable Business Forum. They tolerate me there as a government person, but I learned there one day that there's a company over in Holland that deals specifically with green transportation. And so we went to visit there one day, Norm and I, on a trip, and found out that there are actually lots of trucks that go up and down the road every day that just have one pallet sitting in the middle of them with a few products on them, and people pay big money to ship things. So this company gathers folks together and repackages things in a trailer load. They're able to charge for that service and save the person enough money on the freight to make all that work. And I thought that was a great eye-opener. I mean, how many trucks go up and down the road? And as corporations, we just ship things out because we got to get them to the customer as quick as possible. That's the whole name of the game. But the whole concept of green purchasing and strategic and logistics is kind of cool, and I appreciate learning about that at the forum. Question in the back, Dave?
John, I'd like to applaud Metro for what they're doing, and I know you're probably not in a good position to answer this question, but I'm curious, without either advocating for or criticizing, the larger elephant in the room. Our other hospitals, such as Spectrum and other medical facilities, are they addressing things on the same level, or are they kind of behind the eight ball here?
I think they are. I think they have a much bigger road ahead of them than we do. Somebody told me they had about 14,000 employees, and we have 1,400. So I know that for they've just hired a recent Aquinas Sustainable Business student as their sustainability coordinator, and he's sitting in this room if you want to talk to him. So he's a very good person, and they hired a very good person to begin this process and begin educating them internally. But I think they do have a long road ahead of them just because of how big they are. And we, just for everyone, the 28 hospitals in the West Michigan community purchased together under one GPO, group purchasing organization. And there is a lot of power within that GPO because a lot of people, manufacturing, what have you, want to get into this field. So there has definitely been some preliminary discussions on working with all of those hospitals and how we can negotiate on a much wider front on the criteria that I just put to you, because we do that on a health and safety standpoint, on surgical equipment, financial purposes as well. So I think, just to restate what I said, they've got a long road to go, but they're getting there.
I'm also encouraged. I believe Spectrum joined the Sustainability Partners group recently, or they're thinking about joining. So we've been having conversations with them, and that's exciting. So, yes.
With regard to the last comment, John, to what extent is the local first an objective of what you do in terms of your purchasing? Because we got two different presenters. Is there a kind of a coordination there?
Yeah, absolutely. We look at how far the product's traveling. I mean, it's hard because there are so many different criteria that you're balancing with the financial ramifications, the health and safety criteria, but it's something that we look into. As Corky mentioned, we have all the healthcare institutions in the Grand Rapids area have a commitment to minority and women-owned businesses as well. So it's one of those factors that we pull in when we're putting out an RFP with a company.
Yes.
My question is for Mary Ellen. How do you communicate reductions in the embodied energy of a component as adding value to shareholders?
I don't know that we directly would try to communicate that, but one thing that we do that kind of corresponds with our annual financial report is we have just started doing an annual environmental report, and at the back of that we do give a lot of data, a lot of graphical data about reductions in energy use, reductions in greenhouse gas emissions, reductions in VOC emissions, and more. So it's not on a component by component level, it's on a company-wide level in that report. But I guess maybe the other way that we look at it too is when we are certifying different products for this cradle-to-cradle certification, this pretty sophisticated environmental friendliness type certification, we have to address that energy component. You have to address it differently depending upon whether you're going for a silver or a gold or a platinum level certification. So it is something that we have to take into account in order to obtain that certification. So I hope that helps. Okay.
The other thing is as you may know, BIFMA is going through the Sustainable Product Assessment Standard, and that is directly addressed in the standard. It talks about the embodied energy of products and gives credits and points for reduced carbon footprint. So that is a legitimate value to shareholders, and if you believe that carbon is going to be taxed eventually or somehow regulated, and there's a Midwest carbon registry that's recently developed where you can bank those credits until you accumulate enough of them to sell them on the Chicago Climate Exchange, which has a dollar value. So there's two different ways I think you could explain value to your shareholder.
Marta?
I'm glad you had the word tax brought up, because with all this interest and capacity to inform our practices with what we are learning and our capable of sharing. I think it's really important to recognize that the laws in place need to be informed by those who know enough to care and care enough to know more about reducing what we don't want and encouraging what we do. So the fact that we are subsidizing the U.S. subsidizes the cotton as the most heavily treated crop in the world with carcinogenic chemicals and pesticides. Why are we doing that when there are great alternatives and when we have enough cancer and and it'd be nice to see appropriations that are much more intelligently informed by what we want in the way of health and quality of life. So, sorry if you didn't know that. It's a little sobering. But it's fun to think about if that's the case. And CAFTA would never have passed without the cotton industry's lobby. And the Attorney General's office in New Mexico cannot support anything that flies in the face of a cotton lobby, even if it's the largest children's health issue. So it's fun to look at how we can inform laws in a way that helps everyone promote social equity and environmental responsibility.
We're out of time. I hope you will join me in thanking our panelists for their presentation.